I'd like to thank the four candidates for joining us tonight and congratulate you on taking the bold step to put yourself up for office and for public service. It's an admirable task that you've got in front of you, and I wish you all the best of luck, as I'm sure the rest of the panelists do as well. This is the first of two candidate forums. As I mentioned, this one tonight is being hosted by the Raynham Republican Town Committee. Next Monday night at 7 o'clock, Pat Riley in the Inside Scoop will be doing her annual candidates forum as well. So you have a second chance. If you don't like the way you did tonight, you have a second chance next Monday night. But a couple words about why the Raynham Republican Town Committee is sponsoring this. And I know people get a little nervous when you see either a Democrat or Republican attached to a town or local election. And I just want to reiterate to something that I mentioned to all of you in the past, is that this is not a partisan race. This is not a partisan debate or a forum, for lack of a better word. This is merely a public service that the Raynham Republican Town Committee sees as vital to its existence. We are proponents of open dialogue, open discussion on local issues, and this is a great way for us to provide a service to the voters and to make sure that you all have an opportunity to introduce yourself to the voters and let them know exactly what you stand for and why you're running for the office. So with that, I think we'll get right into it and offer you all the opportunity for a brief introduction. We'll go right across the board, starting with you, Kevin.
John, thank you. I'm Kevin Marrera. I'm from Hall Street in Raynham. I have lived in Raynham for 8 years now, and I'm here because I have a cause that I want to believe in. The town of Raynham is great, and I want to make sure it stays that way and keeps growing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Moderator, my name is Dick Schiavo. I live in Hickory Drive in Raynham with my wife, Carolyn, and I have 3 children and 7 grandchildren and enjoy living in this community.
Hi, Karen Roberts. I also live Raynham on Elm Street East, and I live there with my husband, Chris, and 3 children, 2 of which are in college and 1 in high school. And I'm running because I've lived in Raynham my whole life, since 1966, so I believe in Raynham, and I stand up for everything that it's taught me my whole life, so I'd like to just continue the tradition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Terrence Smith. I live on Cynthia Drive in Raynham. I've lived in the town for 6 years. I've been a high school teacher for 8. And the reason I'm running for selectman is because I want to continue a fine tradition that I've seen in this town for as long as I've been here. I'm very proud of a lot of things that I've come to witness, and I want to continue. I want to be the honest voice and the best candidate, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. To the right of the stage, we have our esteemed panelists, and I will give a brief introduction of who they are. The first is Bill Nickerson. He's the chair of the Raynham Republican Town Committee. He's also a state committeeman. He represents the town of Raynham with regards to the Republican State Committee, as well as many other towns and cities across southeastern Mass, Bill, if I'm not mistaken. Lifelong Raynham resident, resident of South Raynham, Precinct 3. Anything I missed? No?
It's enough.
Next to Bill is Jim DuPont. Jim's a former selectman, former school committeeman, also a state committeeman for, dare I say, 25-ish years. Also a lifelong Raynham resident, with the exception of a couple of years spent out west. And Jim is a resident of what we would refer to as the center of Raynham, Precinct 1, correct? At the end of the table, we have Bill Palmer. Bill's a local businessman, raising a family here in Raynham. Also a member of the Republican Town Committee here in Raynham. His wife, Kim, is the state committee woman from for the same district that Bill covers. And Bill lives in Precinct 2, up in what we affectionately refer to as the North.
That's correct.
That's correct? Great. So the way this is going to go is that the panelists will be asking a series of questions. Each candidate will have a question to have an opportunity to answer every question. We will alternate or rotate who answers first, so we'll let you know who's who's first for the particular question. We'll give you 60 to 90 seconds, and if you feel you need more, please, as maybe we can come around after all four have had the chance to answer the question. Keep an eye up here. If I start to give you a little wave, that means you're getting close to your time limit. Towards the end of the forum, we do have some folks here from the public and the press, so if time permits, we will open it up to questions from the public or the press. Before the debate, forum, we chose numbers out of a hat, and we determined a order of opening statements. So each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for an opening statement. And I believe, Terrence, you are up, sir.
Thank you. To open, I'd just like to say that I've dedicated my entire life to public service. I've been a teacher altogether for 9 years. I've been a basketball coach. I've been a tutor. I am a member of the Lions Club. I'm on the executive board there. I have worked at BCC. And to be honest, you know, when you walk around town and you talk to residents and you get a feel for the town, people love living here. People love the services that we provide. They love the school system. They enjoy our parks. They enjoy almost everything about the town. But we don't, in my opinion, hear enough from the selectmen. I feel that there is a divide between the common people who work hard every single day and some of the things that occur right here in this building. And one of the main reasons that I'm running is because I want to open up a clearer voice, an honest voice, and a dedicated voice. I fall back on my dedication in my public service, and I would love to continue the fine tradition that Mr. McKinnon has left us for the past 23 years. And I would like to be just an honest guy, doing honest work.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Mr. Chavo.
Yes. My wife and Carolyn and I moved to Raynham in 1995. Since that time, I have actively participated in town government. I was a member of the Capital Planning Committee. Subsequent to that, a member of the Finance Committee, and I'm now serving the last year of my third term as a sewer commissioner. That experience, I believe, has given me an excellent insight into the town's budget process, as well as the public works projects of the town. I've had the opportunity, particularly as a sewer commissioner, to work with many of the town's employees and other elected officials. We've accomplished a lot as a team. I've developed excellent working relationships with these people, and I feel that this would stand me in good stead, particularly keeping in mind that the responsibilities of the selectmen are varied, they're challenging, and I feel that my experience qualifies me as the best candidate to fulfill that responsibility in an efficient and an economical way. My goal, if I'm elected selectman, would be to work diligently to advance the interests of the town's residents and also the town's employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin.
Well, I want to start off by saying that everybody asks me why I wanted to run for the town office. And I tell them it's because I want to see a change, not a change for the older generation, the younger generation. I want to see a change overall and a continued effort on our part as people in the community to make sure that Raynham continues to strive. I had an interview a while back ago, and I said in the interview, our town's not broken. Raynham's a great town. I came from a town that was broken, and that's why I moved to Raynham. But there's still room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. There's always room to grow. There's always room to look at what can be fixed so it works a lot more efficiently. In 2002, I was married. A few months later, I found out I was having my first child. A month later, I was deployed to Iraq. So my political experience is none. My experience in life is a lot. Since then, I've been deployed overseas twice, to Iraq each time, and I've grown a lot. So me coming from an outside point of view and looking at what I can bring to the table, in my opinion, is good. Because I can look at what's there, I can bring the outside look, the outside eyes, I can ask questions. As part of Generation Y, as some people would call it, it's almost about the why generation. Why do we do that? Why is this like this? A lot of people will just go with the status quo because it's the way it's been. I'm looking to come into it with an outside look, and hopefully I can have some changes along the way. That's great for the town of Raynham. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. So we'll start right in with the question. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen.
That's okay, John.
Wow.
Like I said, I'm a lifelong resident of Raynham. I've lived here since 1966. I've gone through the school systems. I used to live in Pleasantfield, and then since I've moved over to North Raynham, I've raised 3 children. They've gone through the school system. I've volunteered in the school systems, done the rave, done the great books across the board in the schools. I've also been fortunate enough to have 2 jobs, which are both located in Raynham. So I see people on a daily basis from the town, get concerns of theirs and things like that. I've developed great relationships with the fire and the police because of my job. I have to have them in all the time. So I see their concerns and their issues. And like I said, I've dealt with the school systems, and I've talked to people over there and know their issues. So that's why I'm running, and that's why I'd like your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for
That's okay.
almost skipping you. So we'll go right into the questions. We'll start with Mr. Nickerson, and what we'll do is Kevin, you will answer first. We'll go right down the line, and then for the second question, when Mr. DuPont comes, we'll start with Dick. We'll go again down the line. We'll come back to Kevin. So, Mr. Nickerson.
Yeah, I want to reiterate this, the moderator's comments. Thank you very much. We have all of our respect for the fact that you're actually running for selectman, and commend you for doing that. So wish you all success. First question, I think you'll find, having been in the town just a few years, regards aerial spraying for mosquitoes. Okay, if you do believe the state should spray, what would you do to advocate this service? And if you don't think they should spray, what options might you offer to protect the residents from the likes of West Island, Tripoli mosquitoes? So in a nutshell, do you believe that we should spray? And if you do or you don't, what would you advocate? And if not, what options would you offer? I believe we're starting with Kevin.
Kevin, 90 seconds.
Well, in my opinion, I do believe the town should spray. My lot on Hall Street actually abuts the Hockomock. So I deal with the mosquito issue all spring, all summer. And it is a great service. I remember when I first moved there, at 3 a.m., I heard what sounded like a snowblower in my backyard. I had no clue what it was, but it was the spraying. And I took advantage of that. I called, I got on the call list, and I said, please come by, come down my driveway. I think it's a great service, especially with all the insects that are out there, all the diseases that are being passed now. We need to make sure that the residents, the children, especially if you abut a conservation area, are taken care of. Making sure that stuff like that is happening, especially if the state is handling it, the cost, that's a free service that we need to take advantage of. If not, it's going to be coming out of our pockets and our taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Dick?
Of course, I believe that we should work very hard to increase the efforts on behalf of eliminating this grave danger to the residents. One of the responsibilities of the selectmen, of course, as some of you may know, is that they are also members of the Board of Health. And in that regard, they have a very serious responsibility with regard to this issue. I think that in the past, the selectmen have made major efforts to mitigate this problem. I think we need to continue to do that. The state has reluctantly, I think, proceeded with some of the requests that we've made, but we need to continue to lobby for better and more thorough spraying of the area, without a question, earlier. And so I'm entirely for it, and as a member of the Board of Health, I would certainly use that office or those responsibilities to further the efforts on behalf of the town with regard to this very, very serious issue.
I agree also that I think the spraying is crucial to the town. As a lot of people know, we had a death last year because of the Tripoli effects, and we don't want to have anything like that happen again. Absolutely spray and take advantage of it. Spray early, spray often. As many people can call and get it done in your neighborhood, because you don't want to have that happen again. And like they said, it's a free service right now for us to take advantage of it, so we absolutely should do it.
Yeah, the fatality was a tragedy last year, but my major question is it safe? What are the chemicals being used? How many how many studies have been done to prove that what we are spraying over the town is 100% safe for our children. I also have a young son. And at the same time that I want to say yes, I want to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible, including my son. I also want to make sure that we don't do anything to the waterways, damage the environment, or hurt us down the line. You know, my son is very, very young, and I don't want to see any problems as a teenager because of something that we've done now in haste. So conditionally, yes, I'd love to say we should spray, but I would want to say conditionally because I want to make sure that everything that we use is 100% safe for this town.
Thank you. The next question will be asked by Mr. Dupont. First up will be Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. What will be the first item that you propose for the agenda at your very first meeting?
First item.
Specifically, what issue? What are you going to say?
Well, I think one of the very first items of concern to me is to attract new businesses to the community. I think this is important. I think we compete with other communities to attract businesses. I think that that these businesses, as they stand right now, are important to us in terms of taxes. They also employ a lot of our local residents. So one of the things that concerns me is how to be as attractive a community as possible to new businesses. Now, one of the things that I'm concerned about are the comments made about increasing the taxes to new businesses. I feel that that's a very fine line between what is fair and what is sustainable to maintain a competitive position in attracting businesses in this community. Having said that, there's another side of the coin that I'm concerned about, and that's the cost benefit of any new business. It's easy to talk about the benefits, but we also, while we're looking for business opportunities in this community, we must consider the cost as well. And I mean what expenses there are for police, fire, highway department, that type of a thing. And also, by the way, what cost there might be to residents that are co-located to new businesses. So I think good governing, good managing is negotiating to mitigate these costs, but in all cases, look to attract businesses to the community because that improves the overall well-being of the community. That would be the first issue.
Thank you. Karen?
I also would like to see more jobs be created in this town. Like I said, I work here. I have 2 jobs here. And last year I had to lay off about 35% of my employees because of loss of work for them. And it was a terrible thing. A lot of people lost homes. A lot of people had to move. It was just something that shouldn't have happened. And I agree. I think that we need to keep the Raynham people back in Raynham, keep them working, whatever it takes. I think jobs are the most important thing for us here. And it was tragic that a lot of people lost their jobs, their livelihood, and I would recommend that jobs and businesses, whether it be putting more money into the businesses that are already here, or, like he said, creating new businesses. But I think we need to keep Raynham going on that track and keep people working. I think that's the most important thing.
Walmart. First thing on my agenda, without a doubt. We have an unbelievably profitable business in our town, and I am very pro-business. I'm not saying I'm against Walmart. By all means, the Walton family has done amazing for themselves. We're going to have a second Walmart in our town, and as has been mentioned, you know, I feel that the residents have been in a pinch. You know, I feel that some people are being priced out because we cannot afford some of these property taxes, some of the assessment that's going on. And if we're going to offer a great location, great accessibility for a second company in our town, I want to know why it's not possible for us to change it so that they can pay more taxes. I'm not talking about an HVAC company. I'm not talking about a knife grinding company. I'm not talking about a lot of the businesses that at Bristol Plymouth we send our students to. I'm not talking about small businesses. I'm talking about a mega rich company that we're welcoming into our town. Why can't they help us out a little bit more on the tax revenue? And as the first thing on my mind when I get in, if I am elected, if the residents decide to elect me, I want to know what the process is that we can have something for a company that makes that much money. If there's any way we can balance it out so that residents in our community don't feel the pinch that I hear about day in and day out. Thank you.
I can't argue with anyone up here. They all have the same view. I have the same exact view. Economic growth is the wave of the future. Some towns, our surrounding towns, are stuck in a stalemate between themselves, not knowing, should we advance, should we not. Obviously, Raynham is not thought that way, and they have advanced, and it's been very, very good advancement and profitable. On the flip side of that, we have to advance at a rate that we are not affecting our small businesses. I spoke to someone last week that is planning on leaving Raynham because she cannot compete with her assessed taxes with the large businesses that, to them, their tax bill, I hate to say it, but is a drop in the bucket to most of these large businesses. We have to make sure that we assess properly, and it could be a small establishment on the same road as Walmart. We need to take into consideration, okay, the large establishment, of course, is going to make more, and paying larger taxes is really not going to affect them. But the small shop, the mom and pop store, they're going to get hit in the wallet. And those are the ones that we have to assess and take care of. If not, they're going to leave. And how can we promote people to come to Raynham, stay in Raynham, work in Raynham, start a business in Raynham, if we can't take care of them ourselves?
Thank you. Next question will come from Mr. Palmer, and the first up will be Karen Roberts.
Karen, do you support slot machines, a full casino, or no gaming at all at the dog track?
Well, as I'm not sure if everybody knows, I do work at the dog track. I do support the slots at the dog track. I think the revenue would be crucial for the town. It's the business has been there for 40 years. It's established. It's ready to go. They can have it up and running in 90 days. He's got access from both highways. The talk of the train going behind there. It's a prime location. And I know people are concerned. They think, well, it's going to be a lot of traffic. It's going to be a lot of people on that road. But if people remember back in the 80s when the track was in full-blown mode and they were running $1 million a day, they had just as much, if not more, than they would probably have with the slot machines. And also, it would be huge, crucial for police and fire to get them back doing details there, you know, that they used to be doing, making money for the town, making money for everybody. I think it would be a win-win all around.
Thank you. Terrence?
I support a charity poker business that I've seen very successfully run in New Hampshire at Seabrook and Rockingham Park, where half of the profits directly benefit a different charity every single day. That I am fully supportive of. I've been up there, I've seen it work successfully, and I've seen the security that they have. And I would rather have that than slot machines. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Mr. Carney or his right to have slot machines. If it applies and it goes through, by all means, good luck and God bless. This is, that's his right. But I would support an alternative, without a doubt. I think a private security firm working there would be equally effective as our police department, which I feel is already drained. To go back to my number one issue, Walmart, I know that for a fact that they're called there almost twice a day. And that's a different concern that I'll address later, but with another one, well, that's another issue. But to answer your question, I would have to say I do not support the slots, but I would support charity poker. Thank you.
Thanks.
Kevin?
I do support the slot machines, and I have all my neighbors that ask me the same question. Is it going to increase our traffic? Is it going to increase our traffic on Hall Street as a cut-through to get over to Elm Street East? And I turn to them and I say, anything is manageable with the proper things in place. Obviously, it's going to be great for the town. 100%, it's going to bring revenue to town. But also on the flip side, we have to look at, as the town, what's in it for us? What's in it for the town of Raynham? Are we going to get a gift of enough to order another fire engine, order another ambulance, order a couple police cars? That's the kind of things we have to look at, and when the time comes that comes to the table, we actually have to sit down and look at the overall big picture. We know that a slot machine parlor, it's going to bring in some good revenue. We need to make sure that the town of Raynham is taken care of also. Again, I'm 100% for it. I don't see something like this really impacting with the major intersections that we have there, a lot of the rest of the town. And if we can keep that right there where it is and we continue to take care of the infrastructure outside of the dog track connecting to the highways, I don't see it being an issue. I think it's a great future endeavor for the town, as long as we look at it and consider all the avenues that we need to consider as the town to make sure the town's taken care of also.
Yeah, I echo the comments of both Karen and Kevin. I would fully support slots at the Raynham Dog Track. Number one, the facility is there, so there are no issues about locating it against other properties. It's set up, it's ready to go. It's a low-cost type of transition. The point that was just made goes to the point that I made at the start of these discussions, which is we always look at the cost-benefit of any endeavor, and we always look to mitigate those costs. Much as those costs were mitigated with the Kmart, by the way, I was not part of those negotiations, but I do recall that the selectmen who were involved when Kmart came to town, that there were mitigation relative to water and to sewerage and to highway. So there was a lot of mitigation there, and whether or not that's sufficient to satisfy all the people in town, I'm not sure, but I think that our efforts in the past with new business have been committed and dedicated in terms of the town's total benefit. As far as this question goes, there's no doubt that I would support the slots at the Raynham track, without a doubt. It's a no-brainer.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Nickerson, and first answer will be Terrence.
Another hot button topic in Raynham over the last number of years has been the NBA Stoughton Line commuter rail. There's two issues, actually. One is, of course, the Hockomock environmental impact on that, whether you support that or not. If you do support the rail, they have a large impact, evidently, obviously on the numerous trains that come through daily. So people who live along the rail bed, they'll be impacted. So I guess it's a twofold question relative to the swamp, and as well as the impact it may have, and your thoughts with regards to that with the rail coming through.
Thank you for the hot button issue. No, I like to think of myself. I didn't come here because I thought it would be easy. No, I actually do support a train, but I do have to balance that with my environmental concerns. I don't want to destroy the forest. I want to see the most equitable and easily put in line. But I also know how much business it brings down. I mean, I see how many students go down to Bridgewater State University on the train system. I know how many people use the train system out of Mansfield. Many of my coworkers do. So I just and I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we've had the train system since the day I was born, and it is just such an efficient way to move around, to transport goods or whatnot. So I got to say, I'm in support of it. I've seen the benefits, and as long as it doesn't completely destroy Hockomock, I would be in full support of it.
Thank you. Kevin.
From my experience in the military over the years, the days of changing your oil over a drain, they're long gone. So I fully understand the concern about the Hockomock, the environment, and I am fully supportive of the train. To me, it's a no-brainer. But you also have to consider, how are we going to manage it without damaging our ecosystem? And it's possible. Everything is possible. It all depends on how much the state wants to assist us with in investing in that project. Will it bring extra jobs to to our town of Raynham? Absolutely. Will it bring extra commerce in, especially in the location where it's proposed to go, which I'm already for the slot parlor. That's just going to bring in more people to that location, more patrons, more investment in Raynham. I'm for it. I have a neighbor who actually has to drive to Bridgewater right now, park at the commuter rail station, and when he leaves, at the same time every train's coming in, and he lives in Raynham right next door to me on Hall Street, and some days it takes him 45 minutes to get home from Bridgewater because of going through the center of town. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea, and I'm surprised it hasn't been pushed through yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick?
I have mixed emotions on this one. I don't think the jury's out on it. I know there are ecological, environmental issues. There's certainly economic issues, and I see all of that. I think I'd want to know a little bit more about all of that before I made a final judgment on it and threw my support behind it or against it. I think it's one of those areas of opportunity that we should get all of the opinions that we can in town, all of the best experts, and really put our heads together. I know there's been a lot for and a lot against it, and I guess at this point, I just want to say that I'm open-minded to the issue, clearly want to hear the benefits and the costs, and I would make an informed decision at that point, but I'm not prepared at this point to make it a no-brainer.
Karen?
Thank you. I would have to agree with you on that one, too. I know it's scheduled to go right behind where the dog track is, and I think that would be great for, the dog track if they did get the slots. And I think if the two were handed together, I think it would be a good decision to do that. But I also agree, I think there needs to be more research done for the environment because, like I said, I've grown up in this town my whole life, and that's a big change for the town. I totally agree that it's a very busy thing to put in this kind of a community right now. I don't think the people of Raynham realize how much that would impact the town with the noise and just the whole environmental issue. I think there needs to be a lot more research done on it before I would agree either way on that. Thanks.
I'd like to, if I could just interrupt the panel for one quick second and maybe ask you all just to comment a little further on this issue. You all touched on the environment and the economics, but if the train does come through, Mr. Nickerson mentioned there's a rail bed that abuts many neighborhoods. So it comes down parallel 138 behind the track, down across Bridge Street, West Elm, Carver Street, Prospect Hill, makes a cut across 138 down around Central Oil, and then cuts across Britain, and several different neighborhoods are going to be impacted. So, how will you handle mitigation with the state on behalf of those residents that abut the rail bed? And we'll stay with the same order, Terrence.
Safety number one. Make sure that residents aren't affected in an adverse manner. Make sure that exactly what you're saying. You're more concerned noise. You don't want to be woken up extremely early if unneeded, and you don't want to have trouble going to sleep. And I automatically think back on my experience. My experience with the trains in the Boston area or coming to the South Shore when I commuted have always been very positive, and I see so much of a benefit. I haven't really heard anybody in opposition to the trains that I've talked to. That hasn't been one of the major issues. I'd like to see it get extended because it'll open up the South Shore to a whole new range of people that have not been able to get down here. It'll provide a service, an invaluable service that, those trains are running very, very clean nowadays. So if it can be done correctly, cleanly, with everybody's concerns in mind, I would absolutely support it, without a doubt.
Thank you. Kevin?
Absolutely. I agree also. Our biggest thing that we have to do is make sure that everybody is on board with the same thing. Crossings, we need to make sure our crossings, at certain times, crossing horns are probably going to have to be communicated with the state that they'll have to be cut down. If it's right up against houses, we need the sound barriers put in, and that's a state cost. If they want this line to go in, they're going to have to front the money. I grew up in Bridgewater, right by the college, and in the mid-'90s, when the commuter rail went in there, it was honestly a culture shock. From a freight train going by once at 3 a.m. to a train going by twice an hour, honking its horn. It took some adjustment. Honestly, it took about a week of adjustment or two, and then it was just there. You knew it was there. It was second nature. If the processes are put in place where the safety is concerned, the sound barriers are concerned, as long as we have, especially traffic concerns also. The location it's proposed to go into, it's in a great location. It doesn't cut through any of the main towns between the main routes, a lot of them. It cuts through a couple, but we have to outweigh the concern of we want to make the town grow, we want to increase commuters and save on cars on the street.
Thank you. Dick?
I believe the question was, quote, how would you handle the mitigation with those that were co-located with the proposed railroad? And I would say I would handle the mitigation the way I would want it to be handled with me. If I were one of those property owners, I would want to be treated as equitably and as fairly as I would expect to be treated myself. And that means that what costs might be imposed on them through fair evaluation and judgment need to be considered when these people's costs are made known. We need to make them whole. I don't want to make a change in this town and leave any resident wanting as a result of that change. We need to mitigate that in the same way we would want that mitigation for ourselves. That's the way I feel about that.
Thank you. Karen?
Actually, the train would go right across from, on West Elm, right by my neighbor's house, and she has huge concerns with this. They said the same thing. They were going to put the sound barrier in and double insulate windows and this and that. But I'm sorry, if you have a train that big coming from me to you away, there's not going to be any sound barrier that's going to stop that. And, you know, she's lived there 30 years, and I think that's a huge, you know, you plan on living there, retiring there, this is your home. And I can't see it. I can't see it really working there. I just don't see how the people of this town, like you were saying, it was in Boston, but Boston isn't Raynham. It's a huge difference, and I think the people in Raynham stayed in Raynham and like Raynham because of what the aspects of the whole town are, and I think a big train like that would cause some issues.
Can I just add one thing real quick?
Thank you.
Not to go against anybody. I can still hear a train at night from my house. I don't know about you guys, but late at night, you know, I'm trying to sleep. I can still hear the horn. So it's here. We have them. I mean, and I feel it's the best way possible. But that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. Mr. Dupont, patiently waiting.
We're going to pretend that one of you got elected. One of you will get elected. Now I'm going to look you right in the eye, and I'm going to ask you to tell me. You just picked up the phone. It's 9:30 Saturday night. Somebody you probably don't even know is calling you to complain that his neighbor is having a wild party. There's cars all over the place and noise. There's trash being thrown all about. What are you going to say to him?
And I believe we're starting with, we're back to, it's Terrence, right? Or Terrence did that last one.
No, I think-
We're back to Kevin.
What are you going to say to me if I make that call to you?
That's a great question, because
It's not rhetorical.
No,
You're going to get that
Yeah,
call.
and I have made that call being a resident by the university in Bridgewater.
That was you?
When the house next door is owned by someone who doesn't care who he rents to, and at 3 a.m., there's the party. And there are about 200 people over capacity of what the house holds. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the concerned resident that I'm going to address the issue. I will call the police department myself, whatever time of night it is. If a resident has an issue, I will treat it just like I treat my soldiers in my unit. My phone is on 24 hours a day. I will address any issue to the best of my power. I may not be able to handle that issue 100% myself, but I will refer that question to the right people. And for a question like that, it would be the police department. The police department would be called by myself, if they haven't already been called by the neighbors, and I would get them down there to, to make sure that the people of this town want to make sure that they're taken care of. If we have an issue like that, we need to get it addressed instantly and taken care of, just so we know that the residents are safe within their homes. They can feel that they can call, and they're not going to be blown off. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick?
You
You know-
just picked up the phone, and I'm on the phone, and I'm not happy.
Yep.
What are you going to say to me?
Well, of course, obviously it deserves attention, and of course, one of us has to call the police. So, I mean, that's, to use an expression used earlier, that's a no-brainer. I mean, if there's something going on that's disturbing the peace, it requires attention, and certainly the police is the right place to go. I think at a subsequent selectmen's meeting, I might announce before the public that when they have such a concern in the future, to call the police directly. I think that might be a more efficient way of dealing with a public nuisance and a public danger than going indirectly through a selectman. But of course I would be there for the person naturally, because it's a public position and people know you for that responsibility. But I would hope the residents, would think of the police first, because they'd save a lot of time. It's not that I'm up or that I'm not up, but it's just one phone call less to get the job done.
Thank you. Karen?
Of course, I would like you said, it's a no-brainer. You would call the police, you would call whoever. And in addition to that, I would call you, being the concerned person, back and say, are you happy with how everything got resolved? You know, was everything handled adequately? Do you have any concerns that weren't done? And follow up with you as the person.
Terrence?
I would also, I would say to the concerned citizen that I would be calling the police, or I would, ask them to call the police. But I'd have a little bit more follow-up. I'd say, listen, well, let's make sure this is resolved. I want you to call me back after the police have been there. And I would inform the concerned citizen that, there needs some follow-up. Why has it been overcapacity? Why has this party gone unnoticed for so long? And has it been a problem? Has it been a continued problem? If there's trash everywhere, is there health code violations? I would want some definitive follow-up to a situation of that, magnitude. I mean, you're not sounding like a small house party. You're sounding like something a little bit larger. And that'd be it, and I would want to follow up with the police as well, so that such a problem wouldn't, repeat and bother somebody at 9:30. I don't know somebody's schedule at 9:30. I don't know if you're getting up late to go to work. So I would make sure that there was definite follow-up in addition to police contact.
I would just want to follow up, Mr. Donahue, by saying that if you did know that the town of Raynham has a noise ordinance, and I'm not sure that you do,
10 o'clock.
but it does have one, and guy sitting in the back of the room, he and I wrote it. And it specifically states that you can make noise until 10 o'clock at night and no earlier than 7 o'clock in the morning. And with all due respect, I think that if someone has called the police and the police have told that person that that resident is not violating any law, you're going to get a call and you're going to be put in a position where you're going to have to somehow balance the fact that the town of Raynham has an ordinance and the police have to abide by it, but you have an unhappy resident.
Talking about my house, Jim?
No,
Oh,
mine.
Just making sure.
The crazy guy at the pond with the music.
Mr. Palmer? And this question will go to Dick first. Yep.
What is your position on the residential business tax split? I know we touched on, the commercial tax base already, but that was a specific question. How do you feel about the
Thanks.
the
The
current,
residential tax, that's another side of the coin. Well, I would say,
I think he's referring to the ratio, the ratio of,
oh, the ratio or
Percentage.
residential, I'm sorry.
the split that we
Oh,
have
the
in place between residents and business?
The ratio?
Right.
I think the ratio at this point has been very finely tuned. I can't give you the exact ratio, but I've read in the past, when we have increased the business tax a bit more than the residential tax, that we've tried to get as much leverage out of the business tax as possible. So as far as the ratio goes at this point, I would not, out of the gate, assume that there was any disparity there that I would feel would need an immediate addressing. I feel that, as I said earlier, business taxes, they're an issue in terms of each community competing with one another. We need to be very cautious and careful about how much we go to that well. We need a sustainable tax rate which keeps the businesses in this community strong and healthy. And I feel that, that crossing that line leaves us in a position of vulnerability with other communities, and we need to be sensitive to that. So that would be my position.
thank you. Karen?
I am in favor of the split tax. I believe the tax rate right now for the residents is $14 and change, and the business is $19. I think you need to keep it on that level because the residents, you can't have the flat tax because then you're going to alienate people. The people that want to live here aren't going to be able to afford it. The elderly are not going to be able to have an increase. They won't be able to handle it. And the new people that are just moving in with little kids and things like that, they can't handle any more taxes on that. The businesses, I think, are doing a good job with what they have right now, and we have a good balance, and the revenue's coming into the town, and people are keeping their jobs. I'd like to see more jobs, but I think the flat rate would not work, and I'm in favor of the split tax.
Thank you. Terrence?
Thank you. I'm also in favor of the split tax, but, you know, on a personal level, I was over at the Raynham Plaza last week, you know, just buy some food, and there's empty storefronts. You know, there are businesses that we could have come in, but there are businesses that have left. There's been a lot of turnover. I talked to a business owner who's been working for 14 years in the Raynham Plaza, and his main complaint is the assessment. It's not the tax itself. We all realize we have to pay taxes. I mean, it's what keeps our town as great as it is. To go back to one of my original issues, we have a mega corporation, a second one coming into this town. I want to know what we can do with that. I don't want to talk about the small businesses. I want to talk about the mega corporations that are moving in right next door to us that I feel aren't being taxed enough. I don't want to drive anybody out of town. I want more businesses. I want to see every storefront in Raynham Plaza full. I mean, Cogene Plaza has been doing great lately, but I'd like to see everywhere in Raynham booming. That's my grand vision. You know, and however many years it takes. And that's one of the reasons that I'm running. You know, I talk to the residents. I feel some people are being priced out. Prop 2.5 did hurt some single households, some multi-households, and I'd like to see a little bit more balance.
Thank you. Kevin?
The split tax ratio, it's taxes. And nobody likes taxes, but it's something that's always going to be there. It's never going to go away. So the way I think we're doing it with a split is good. Would I like to see the split lean more towards the business side than the household? Absolutely. But then there's the flip side of that. It's a double-edged sword. When we look to the business side of it, who are we really affecting? As Mr. Smith said, we have to look at the big businesses. The small businesses, if they're expected to be assessed at the same rate as a large business is going to be able to pay that tax bill regardless. To them, it's a drop in the bucket. The mom and pop store, the small business owner, needs to be assessed in another way. And I don't know exactly how it would be done, but I know with enough brains in this town all put together, we could come up with a way that we can make it work for every large business, the mom and pop business, the business that's right in the middle. And that's the big thing that we have to do, is to make sure that we don't drive out any more business, because there is a lot of empty spots in this town, and sometimes it is the taxes that affect it. And obviously, if the taxes go up on the businesses and we lose them, well, the town's going to need the income from somewhere else, and it's going to come from the households, and that's what we want to avoid. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nickerson?
Yeah, let's talk about the selectmen board itself. There's a lot to be said for a three-man board, because, you can do things a lot more effectively. But it has its pitfalls, too. A three-man board, two people can't even talk together. That constitutes a forum in a legal meeting. So, it has its pluses and minuses. And that's been debated over the year. What do you feel is the best way to go in the future with the selectmen? Do you think the three-man board is still the way to go, or do you think maybe another design might be better?
Start with
Karen?
No, I'm in favor of the three-man board. I believe it was written on the Raynham Charter way back, and it's been there ever since, and I think it's the way to go. I'm in favor of it. I know some towns are doing the five-man, but I think it's worked for us, and it's always been the rule here, and I just think don't mess with something that's working. So basically, I'm in favor of it.
I agree. I am also in favor of the three-person board. And, to elaborate a little bit more on that, I hope I'm not incorrect in saying this, but I believe we only have 2 town meetings a year. Is that correct? 2 meetings a year?
Usually 2, yes.
Yes, usually.
I would like to see that increased. I think we need a few more. I think 4 would be a little bit better. Businesses go by quarters. I feel that if we can have a 3-person selectman that's working very well, in my opinion, I feel that we need a little bit more input. I would advocate for an additional 2 meetings per year, 1 per quarter. And I'll just end it there.
Somebody's going to have to rework the moderator's budget.
Obviously.
Kevin?
A three-man board is definitely the way to go. I know there are a lot of people that have wanted to go to the 5-person board. When you get to the 5-person board, it's going to make everything drag out more. In town politics, the more people that are in the hat, the more they feel on certain topics, the more things are going to drag out. I've seen that in some of our surrounding towns, and it doesn't work. Now, on the flip side of that, some people will go to say that the 5-man board works the best. Well, are those 3 people going to make it every week? It gets tough. You know, it'll get tough sometimes if you have young children, if you get forced at work for overtime, if something happens. That would be the downfall of the 3-man board. But as of right now, I think the 3-man board is the way to go. It's worked for all this time. Let's not change something that ain't broke.
Thank you. Dick?
Yep. I echo that sentiment. It wasn't too long ago, a couple of years ago, that we had an article in the town warrant to vote for a 5-person board, and it was defeated. So I guess that tells you what the residents in the community have to say about a 5-person board. I think it's the advantage, and there are disadvantages, but the primary advantage is that things are done more efficiently, that agreements can be made in a more streamlined way, and those are all positive. I hope that nobody recommends a 1-person board, though.
Thank you very much. The next question, we will start with Terrence, and it'll be asked by Mr. Dupont.
That was my article to raise the board to 5 members, and I guess I want to ask the people, the candidates here, you do understand that 2 people on a 3-member board constitutes a quorum, which will make it illegal for you to discuss anything with another selectman, whereas if you had a 5-member board, 2 people would not be a quorum. You do understand that, all right. My question is this. Should Raynham take its kindergarten through 8th grade schools out of the regional school district, even if it means increased costs to the town? That was another thing that I put through.
Terrence?
I created the regional district.
Should we take them out?
Maybe go to Terrence first, right?
Yep, Terrence?
I would say no. I don't believe so. I work at a regional school. I work at Bristol Plymouth Regional Vocational Technical High School. I've seen it work efficiently, effectively. I've seen it serve the community to the highest standard. I'm very proud of my coworkers and the administration that I work with, and I've seen nothing but success. So I would have to say no. I think it should stay as it is, and I think it's been working okay, in my opinion. Thank you.
Kevin?
This is a great question. I have children in elementary school. I got 1 in 1st grade, 1 in 3rd, 1 in preschool, and 1 not even in yet. At times, I'm very frustrated with the school board, the regional school district, and I think, yeah, let's do it. Let's leave. But then when you weigh the cost of leaving the school district from K through 8 and solely being on Raynham, now we have to take the administrative side of that and times it by 2. So what the regional school district is doing with just the 1 person in charge, the 1 superintendent, the 1 department heads throughout the whole region, now if you separate from that, now you have to times everything by 2. Times everything by 2 is going to increase costs to the taxpayers, and of course, again, come down to taxes. No one wants to pay more taxes. For right now, I think keeping it regionalized was the best bet, especially it increases the state funding that we get also. If we de-regionalize some of it, we're going to lose a lot of funding, which is going to have to be offset by the taxpayers of this town.
Thank you. Mr. Chavo?
Well, certainly economics is a major consideration. I do recall in past years that there's been a lot of frustration on the part of Raynham residents when it came to the school budget, and we anteed up without any questions, and our colleagues on the other side were slow to come through with the monies requested and needed to further the quality education in the community. So that's been a long-standing, I think, sort of issue, and we need to continue to work at that. But would I throw out the baby with the bathwater? No, I wouldn't. But I think we need to continue to work to get the same kind of dedication to quality education that we have in Raynham in Bridgewater in terms of funding and economics. Yes, there's economies of scale, we understand that, but we need to both come to the table and be equal partners in this.
Thank you. Karen?
No, I'm not in favor of that either. I think everything should stay the way it is. Going through the school system myself and having 3 kids go through the school system, yes, there's ups and downs, and like we've all said, we definitely in Raynham pull more of our weight, I feel, but long-term short, no, it should stay the way it is. And Raynham, Bridgewater could learn a lot from Raynham. We have fabulous volunteers. The RAVE organization that they run is top-notch. Pat Riley does a great job. Everybody in that, from the fingerprinting that they do with the little kids to the great books, there's just so much town spirit and town volunteers that I think it should stay the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Palmer, and we're back to starting with Kevin.
In your opinion, are the taxes too high, just right, or could they go higher to support town services?
Again, wow, right off the chute.
As a homeowner in town, a dad of 4, I don't want to see taxes go up. No town resident wants to see taxes go up. That's where I come in with the economic growth. With more economic growth, if we build on one end, hopefully we can keep the other side down and level off. And that's my goal, if I'm elected, is to make sure that we take care of the economic growth. Because as of right now, taxes, everybody will want taxes to go backwards. Will it ever happen? Probably not. But nobody ever wants to see them go back up either. So that's where we have to look outside the box. We have to be open-minded, get the blinders off, and look at elsewhere for the income to the town to come in. So we can still increase our infrastructure. We can remodel. We can update. We can take care of our town employees with raises. Ultimately, if we don't look outside the box, it's going to have to come from the taxpayers. But I feel there's enough people here in town that we can get, a good, all these brains together, a good think tank, and I think if we think outside the box, other avenues to increase the income of the town, I think it's possible, and it'll keep our taxes level. Thank you.
Well, during these difficult economic times, it's a bit of a push. There are a lot of people unemployed, underemployed. Many people are retired on fixed income. So I would say that now is not the time to consider increasing taxes. During better economic times, that may change. I also think there are ways to think outside of the box, and let me be a little bit more specific. In the sewer department, for example, we bought a tractor last year to do the easements and the pump stations. And when the Central Water District needs to cut grass for the similar purposes, we loan them that tractor. And I think we can do more of that in the town, more cooperating between departments. There's a lot of economic advantage to that type of cooperating. I can give you other examples, but as a selectman, I would encourage the town's departments to do more of this type of synergy, more of this type of cooperation. This is one way to pick up a little bit more value from what we're getting out of the taxes that we have now. Thank you.
Thank you. The tax rate, I believe, is fine just the way it is. I know there are other towns surrounding us, like Easton. I know they're paying astronomical for their residents for the taxes. I hear complaints all the time on that. I don't think anybody wants to have their taxes go up. I understand that. But in the same token, inflation's going up, and people need to make more money to live here, and I just don't see how we can raise the taxes, but at the same token, keep the integrity of the town. I think we need to keep the taxes the same. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. We need to keep the taxes the same. We need to keep the business tax also the same. But I want to see that the Raynham residents don't struggle to live here. There are people that are having a hard time, but raising the taxes isn't going to help them anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Terrence?
Times are tough. 2008, the recession, it hit everybody. It hit everybody very hard. You talk to a business owner today, you talk about the recession, they say, no, we're still in one. So I don't want to see taxes go up. Oh, no, I don't. There's one company I do feel the taxes should go up. I think I've made that kind of clear at this point. But no, I don't. And in fact, I feel that some residential taxes should come down a little bit. I feel like there needs to be a little bit of a balance, a swing to help out some of the residents. I've met too many people who are hurting, and people are still hurting to this day. Be it a business that's left Raynham Marketplace, or a single mother that I work with her son who's having trouble because she thinks her water bill is too high. I hear it from everybody. And that's how I truly feel. I feel that the residential should come down slightly, and I believe my other position is very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nickerson, your question and first answer will be Mr. Shavo.
Simple one for all of you. What do you see as the single most important issue facing the town of Raynham in the year when you're going to sit on a selectman board in April? What do you think is the single most important issue facing the town?
Well, we've talked about a number of them tonight. I don't know that I can put one above any of the others. We've talked about taxes. We've talked about encouraging new businesses. We've talked about, you know, the concerns about the train system coming through. We've talked about contracts with employees to some extent. We could talk more about that. I think all of these are issues. I think what my response to that, Bill, is this. I think the position or the job or the challenge of the select person, a selectman, is to deal with a diverse number of issues that are challenging, to bring a lot of experience to dealing with those issues, to be open-minded to hearing the pros and the cons. And of course, ultimately, whatever the recommendation is of the selectmen, it's up to the town residents to vote for those at town meeting through whatever articles are presented. And certainly the selectmen have a lot to say about what those articles are, but ultimately the town residents deal with those issues in due course. So there's a whole host of issues, and I don't know that I'd put one above any of the others. I really feel that one in this position has to be prepared to deal with a diverse variety of issues, and I'm prepared to do that based on my experience. I would say that, well, I'll leave it at that. Let my colleagues talk about it.
John, if I could, if you don't mind, excuse me. That's fine. I think what I was looking for is there one particular issue that's important to you? And if there isn't one, then that's fine. If you find them all equally important. But that's what I was looking for. So one in particular that was important to each of your candidates.
There is one that we haven't talked about that I think is a big issue, and it's the health insurance that we pay. Unfortunately, it's not us that determines what we are going to pay and how much. It's the state, and but I know that for the town of Raynham, we do pay a lot for the health care, and unfortunately, maybe that could be something we could look into, because I know the state sets the rate, but I know it's a lot for what we have to pay.
Taxes.
Yeah,
I've been saying it all night. I'm concerned about it. I know a lot of people in town have been affected, and it is my #1 concern at this point. And if the Celtics can win a championship.
So many things that a person could talk about, as Dick said here. I guess I'm going to flip the tides a little bit, and I'm actually going to go with the education of the future of our children. What we have now, what I have now, outweighs what I had in grade school. I remember when the IBM processor was still going on, and then we were playing Oregon Trail on a 5.5-inch floppy disk. Those times have changed. Now there are laptops, overhead projectors in classrooms. Instead of a chalkboard, there's a dry erase board. Things have changed, and it's good change. I want to make sure that we as a community invest in the future and the education of our children, because they will be in charge of this town 20, 30, 40 years from now. And if we can't set them up for success now, then we need to start to think about our future a little bit more. I think if we can manage that, eventually those children are going to be the ones that are running the town, and we're going to be relaxing and kicking back, and hopefully we led them in the right direction and gave them the tools that they need to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dupont, this question will start with Karen.
Well, we've heard from all of the candidates regarding taxes and business, with varying degrees of answers. I have to ask you, and I'd like a very direct answer, do you believe that the added public safety benefits of a North Raynham fire station would justify the increase in taxes that would most certainly have to be raised in order to pay for it, and not just this year? When you create another public safety facility, as the town of Bridgewater found out, you don't just pay for it 1 year. You're going to have staff there every year as long as you have a town. So it's not a one-year deal. You're not talking about raising taxes once and getting over it and people forget about it. And fortunately for you, 3 years from now, when you're running for re-election, they've forgotten all about it. They won't forget all about it. They're going to pay those taxes every year. So to restate the question, do you believe the added public safety benefits of a North Raynham fire station justify the increase in taxes that will be needed to pay for it?
No, I don't. I think the town of Raynham has a great fire department right now. 3 of us live in North Raynham. I don't see the added benefit of that at all. I think the taxes would be astronomical, and I don't think people would realize how much they would go up, and I'm not in favor of that.
I'd have to say I am, depending on where the money is drawn from. But yes, I have a huge priority with public safety. If there's a car accident, North Raynham, I'd want a fire engine. I'd want paramedics quicker than having to come from right down the street. So for a question along that line, I would have to say that yes, I am. And it's one of the few times you'll ever hear me say that I feel that a higher tax is without a doubt justified. But public safety is just so big for me that I would have to say yes.
Thank you. Kevin?
Well, again, as Karen said, there's 3 of us here from that side of Raynham. Would it be a good thing? Absolutely. It would be a great thing. But how are we going to pay for it? That's the big thing. Should we raise the taxes on the split tax for the homeowners? No. Should we increase the split tax for the ratio for the large businesses to pay for that offset? Absolutely. If you think about it, most of those large corporations are the ones that will be using that ambulance, that service. We need to make sure that the taxpayers of Raynham are not paying for that. We need to make sure we use them with their income to be paying for that. That way, yeah, it would be a great thing. It would be an absolute great thing to have something on that side of town for faster assistance if needed. But for the taxpayers themselves to pay for it, who live in Raynham, I don't think anybody wants to see their taxes go up. Thank you.
Well, I will answer your question directly. I don't think it's the right move. I think that the next thing after that would be to have a fire department in South Raynham, and on and on and on. I think the central department is well situated to respond in a very timely way throughout the community. So, but again, it's another question which personally, as a candidate for selectman, you know, I don't want to give you a definitive answer that was though I've studied a lot of reports and details on this, because I don't think any of us have had that advantage at this point. So I'm giving you well, I haven't. So I just want to tell you that I'm giving you an answer based off just common sense type of thing. But as a selectman, I'd certainly want to have, as a manager, I'd certainly want to know a little bit more about the pluses and minuses. But in general, at this forum, I would say that I would not be for that decision. I think that the central department, right now, the chief is looking for money to replace a 1982 vehicle. It costs $500,000. What are we talking about building a new, a new fire station for when we have to worry about that capital investment?
Before we go to Mr. Palmer, I'm going to give the audience a little warning here that if you have a question you'd like to ask, after Mr. Palmer's question and the candidates have had an opportunity to ask, I will go to the audience with 2 caveats, that your question be general in nature and not specific to you, and that the question not be directed at a particular candidate, that they be directed at the entire panel. So be thinking about a good question if you have one. Mr. Palmer, and the question we'll open up with Terrence on this one.
Terrence, I got another tough one for you here.
Thank you.
And Karen touched on it a little bit, and we've also talked a lot about taxes tonight. And, one of the great responsibilities as a selectman is dealing with the different unions that are, that represent police, fire, the schools, and all the other departments. Do you have any, private sector experience dealing with collective bargaining?
Just as a member of the union at Bristol Plymouth, that is my experience.
Okay.
So,
All right.
what would you like? I can elaborate if you'd like, but
No,
I'm sorry if I'm not understanding the question correctly. I do have experience.
Do you have any experience
I've been a member.
dealing
I've been a member of the union for the past 8 years. Since the day I walked into Bristol Plymouth, I've been a member of the union, and
Okay.
I know how hard the teachers work, and I know how hard our fire department works, and I know
Right.
how hard our police department works.
Right.
And
Bargaining with them? No, I do not have any experience. Collective bargaining as a teacher with my administration, yes, I have plenty of experience.
Right.
You know, I've been through the process a number of times because we renegotiate every 3 years. So with the negotiating process, you know, I'm not going to lie. No, I don't have a ton of experience with that. The committees I've been on at Bristol Plymouth have been evaluation, have been grievance, and the executive board at the Lions Club, we don't have any a union there. So. So no, I have little experience bargaining, but I am more than willing to learn. But I have to say that I'm in full support of the unions. I know how hard unions work, and I know how effective unions are.
Thank you. Kevin?
I myself was a member of a union as a correctional officer with the state, so I know that dealing with collective bargaining agreements, especially at the state level, is not easy at all when they're dealing with such a massive amount of unions that they have to compete with. How should I rephrase this? Obviously, everybody's going to want a raise eventually. That's just, the COLA's going up, the cost of living, everything goes up. But we also have to realize when dealing with the union, and I realize this in my union, that it's also a give and take. You're not always going to get everything you want. I understand that. If you're in a union and think you're going to get everything you ask for, then you need to really think hard about what you want. You have a list of everything you want. A wish list, take it for granted. A wish list. You know, I want 8 weeks vacation a year. It sounds great. Is it going to happen? Probably not. That's when it comes to both sides of the table, having a good sit down and throwing the ideas all back and forth. If one side of the table, obviously if I'm elected, I'd be on the side of the table of the town trying to coordinate the collective bargaining agreement and come up with the terms. I'm gonna be understanding, but I also want the other side of the table, the union themselves, to be understanding also. There's only so much. Anybody can ask for 8 weeks vacation time, sick time, but if we don't have a way to fund that, if there's no way to fund it, then it's not gonna happen. And sometimes you get into a battle back and forth that I'm going to stick to my guns on my side, and I want what I want. But realistically, it's just not going to happen. The funds aren't there. It's not feasible. Of course, I'm going to look at it as taking care of our town employees as best as I possibly can, because I was a servant also, a civil servant. But there needs to be goals that are real. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick?
Well, the first part of your question is I've negotiated and did performance evaluations with tenured professors, and there's nothing tougher than that as far as I'm concerned. But my approach to negotiating with the unions is to be balanced and even-handed, to treat, as I have through the past 8 years as a elected official with the Sewer Commission, to treat every person in the town that I've worked with, employees as well as others, that are elected with respect and with dignity. And I can tell you that on my work with the Sewer Commission, we've had great team spirit with those people. I know what their contracts are, and I think there's a lot more to negotiating a contract than just wages, as has been intimated. There are many other aspects to contract negotiation than wages. I think the success we've had in the sewer department, I have to say, is underscores the way I have worked with people. You know, I just wanted to mention that in the Commonwealth there are 351 communities, and there are only 4 communities in the Commonwealth that have lower sewer rates than the town of Raynham. Only 4 others. I think we've done a fantastic job. Our people have done a great job, and I think it speaks well for how I work with union employees.
Thank you. Karen?
No, I do not have experience with the unions, but I do have experience with contract negotiations at my job. And like they were saying, there's more than just 8 weeks vacation or money incentives. There's numerous things that you can offer, and it has to be a give and take. The people of the town, the fire, the police, they of course want to keep their jobs, and they want to keep the level that they're at, but they also have to understand that there's just so much money in the budget, and you can't take something away from another department or another sector of the town to fund anybody's salary. But there are other ways that we could, offer a negotiation for them.
Thank you. Anybody from the audience care to ask a question of the candidates? Sure.
Everybody's talking about raising taxes or whether or not to raise taxes. I don't hear anybody saying anything about saving except for Mr. Sharp, or, possibly lending equipment from one department to another, which I think is a great idea. Why do we have two water departments in this town? I for the life of me cannot understand towns, 20 square miles, and we have a North Raynham Water District and a Center District. The Center District's rates are cheaper than the North District, but you've got all those administrative costs. My water bill is $20 quarterly. My administrative cost is the same. It costs me just as much for the administrative cost. Why don't we combine the two water districts together and possibly save the residents money?
Terrence, I believe you are first up on this one.
That's a great question.
How about a great answer then?
Great answer. I will be 100% honest with you. I don't know enough to give you either way, and I'm just going to be straight with you. That is something that I would absolutely look into, and I don't know. I don't know, and I would look into that. I would work hard to address that concern, but I cannot answer that question as to why we have two separate districts. I'm sorry to come up flat on that.
Kevin?
Again, that's a great question, and I've asked that question. That's like the infamous question. Why do we have two in this town, and all the other towns only have one? I've asked that myself to a couple people, and I myself cannot get a straight answer. Some have said it's just the way it's been. Does it work? If the rates were the same across the board, yeah, it probably would work. With the rates being different, and I agree with you 100%, I went from Pleasantfield to Hall Street, two separate water districts. I moved within the same town. Big price difference. I couldn't explain it for the life of me. That's a very good question. It's a very good question. I don't know 100% that answer. I'd love to get it for you if you want to. If you want to give me your information afterwards, I'll definitely look into it because I'm in the same boat. Especially when seeing it firsthand from going from one side of town to the other, I couldn't explain it myself because I remember the first bill I got. We called and said, "Hey, why am I paying more than Pleasantfield?" Oh, it's two separate water districts. It's two separate things, and administratively, both are not run the same way. One you can pay your bill online. One you can't. I think maybe somewhere down the line, if a good investigation into it, I don't want to use investigation, but if a good inquiry into it was made, I don't know why combining it would not be an issue. The jobs are going to remain the same. It's just everything is combined as one. That's something that we'd have to look at in the future down the line. But you make a great point, and I'd love to find out for you. Thank you,
Mr. Chavo.
Well, first of all, the water districts are not town chartered, they're state chartered or state licensed, so I don't believe the town has as much say about combining those as you might think. I think it's historical. I think the people in North Raynham, as I understand it, wanted it that way, and if you check today, I don't think the people in the Central Water District are too happy to reconsider the original decision. The other side of the coin, though, is I happen to know that the two districts do a lot of cooperation. There's a lot of emergency services that have been planned. Should one service decrease, the other can come to the aid of them. So there is some synergy there that may not be apparent on the surface. So I wouldn't want to say that it was all negative, but I think it's historical, and I think there's more to it than just what the town wants. I think there are state issues as well.
Thank you. Karen?
Once again, I'm not sure on that, but the only thing I do know that I have heard is that Central Water District was over for 44 and dealt with all the 44 issues, and that North Raynham, the reason why our bills are so much higher is because it had a huge structural malfunction, and that's why they changed it all, and they had to rebuild and change everything, and that's why our water bills on this side of town are so much higher, and that the other side.
They both do a great job.
Yeah.
I would assume. I've always been in the North District.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at, you got numerous dump trucks, backhoes, all the equipment that one has, the other one also has for a fairly small town.
Yeah.
And it just seems like even if they were two separate districts, but they could share the equipment, it would save some money.
Yep. Absolutely.
Karen, you all set?
Yep.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, looking at the clock, time for one more each. Would that be okay? How is our panel doing? You get time for one more question from each of the panelists, and then we'll do our closings? Yes.
I will yield.
Hold on one
I
second.
will yield, absolutely. Go ahead.
First of all, let me express my support in anything that's streamlining, saving oriented. Secondly, as far as the taxes go, I'd like to know higher taxes for more successful businesses in the town.
Kevin?
You mean like the Walmart type of thing?
Yes, but business in general.
Kevin, that falls to you first.
No, not a problem. Again, it's a great question. Taxes are a big topic. Obviously, the businesses, the big businesses, most of them don't live here. They don't live in this town. Yeah, they use our Subways and our Dunkin' Donuts, and they support the community, but they don't live here like we do every day. They go home at night. Yes. A lot of the businesses, the big businesses, they go elsewhere. They go to their Eastons and maybe their Sharons or maybe their, high-end towns, but they don't live here. And I know keeping our taxes level, because we do live here, the services are here for us every day, and we need to keep them level. And if you've got a big corporation, why can't they, throw in a little bit more? Like I said earlier, a lot of them, they're making so much that a little bit more is not going to bankrupt them. Obviously, if, and Mrs. Smith down here, so he's, on the Walmart, if they have enough money to build another one on the other side of town, they're not as hurting economically as the recession is going to seem it to be. So I would be in favor of seeing a little bit more. I don't want to increase them to the point that we drive them out. But again, that's going to be on the big businesses. We need to make sure we concern ourselves with the small businesses too, not to drive them out. So it needs to be a good ratio on the business side of the taxes. If you make a little more, you should pay a little bit more. If you make a little less, maybe you should make a little, you should have a little bit more less in taxes to the town.
Thank you.
I guess a progressive tax would be the right word.
Progressive, balanced by maybe income revenue. I'll phrase it as that, balanced on how much you bring in as a business yourself. If you're if you're making $3, $4, $5 million a year, or you're a mom and pop and you're making, $100,000 a year, there needs to be a division there, so that, the mom and pop is not going to pay the same thing as a person making $3, $4, $5 million.
Mr. Shalvo.
Well, in fact, these big places, these big businesses do pay more taxes. They pay taxes based on the size of their business. If we're talking about the marginal tax rate that we would tax them, that's another issue entirely. And I'm not sure, just how well that would be applied, so that which businesses pay a higher marginal tax rate than which other businesses. This is getting pretty complicated and arbitrary, in my opinion. They do pay more tax dollars. If they're doing $1 million worth of business, they pay 10 times more taxes than a business doing $100,000. So I think the question comes back, the answer comes back to what I said earlier, sir, and that is that when we bring a new business into town, as good management, as good governors, as good town government, we mitigate those costs through negotiations. And it's the good, solid negotiations that put us in a positive position relative to what we need by roads, what we need extra for police and for fire and for highway. That kind of negotiation is what's critical at the time we bring them in.
Karen?
I think the big businesses would create more jobs. And I think if we tax them out of Raynham, if they're going to pay a certain rate here, but they can go to Taunton and pay so much less, they're going to go to Taunton. So those jobs are going to be lost. So I think we should keep the rate the way it is and keep the businesses here and keep the people employed in Raynham, because a lot of the people depend. I mean, if we're talking Walmart, there's a lot of people in town that work at Walmart, and if Walmart moves to Randolph, those people might not go to Randolph. Now you're talking more money to drive, more, it's across the board. So I think we should keep everything the way it is.
Thank you. Terrence, let me guess.
Well, no, I have two close neighbors who both work at Walmart. So like I said, I am very pro-business. It was only a few years ago that Walmart reported over $1 billion in revenue and $66 million in profit. There's a Walmart in Avon, there's a Walmart in Brockton, and we're about to have two in our community. So when you say something along the lines of progressive tax cut, yes. When you go to the tax center online and you look at Walmart, progressive tax cut, that kind of goes in a couple different ways, and I don't want to stick to that position or say that is. But when you have a company that makes $66 million in profit alone, not even talking about revenue, I feel that they are not helping us out enough. They're not helping us out enough when my neighbors are telling me that they're ready to move. Or the place where I went to get a sign is telling me that, they can pay taxes cheaper somewhere else. So, my position is very clear on this and how I feel about that company in particular. And any company that can record
over $10 million in profit when you don't even talk about revenue. But I have researched some of the numbers. I didn't come in here just to rage against that one company. I actually did some research and found out exactly what they're making, how much they're making, their revenue versus profit. And I mean, the location's set. So I really need, I want to do something if I become selectman. As I said before, that is my #1 issue.
Thank you. Sir in the back, did you have a question, or? No? We're good? Great. Last question from the panelists.
Do we have time? Because we only have 5 minutes left.
No, we've got time.
We do have time?
Yep.
Our prior selectman who's in the back, are you sure you don't have a question?
Just a curious observer tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Nickerson, I think Mr. Schiavo will have the first answer on this one.
Okay, I'll make this a relatively quick one.
And what I will ask is we'll try to limit the answers to 45-ish seconds, so be brief.
Okay, this one is really just a matter of your opinion. Last year at the town meeting, they proposed that cameras go on some of the red lights, where there's an outside contract to actually provide that service. It was narrowly voted down, actually, but it was voted down because they're going outside. You know, and there's a lot of things that can happen with a camera shot, where you can get a ticket for maybe there was a reason you were taking a right on red. No matter what. Do you support the use of cameras, using outside contractors on the traffic lights and stop signs, I guess, in Raynham?
I remember. Yeah, I remember that at the town at the meeting, and the new Chief Donovan proposed it. Let me say this: I'm not a big fan of cameras, but then I don't blow through red lights either. So. And I have, if anybody's ever come through Elm Street onto 138 and stopped there and watched people actually blow through, not a yellow light, I mean a red light at high speeds, I would say, you know, it's not that bad an idea. And a lot of the people that do that aren't Raynham residents either, by the way. So, you know, if it had my vote, and again, I'm not a big fan of cameras, but I'm not the one that runs through red lights either.
Yeah, I want to keep this moving along, but I do want a little caveat to that. I think the issue was an outside contractor providing that service. It wasn't just our police.
Yeah.
So you still feel the same?
Well, I mean, I think that's a nuance that needs, you know, further. I mean, I'm answering in principle. I'm not against it. You know, in terms of how it's managed between an outside contractor and the police, and when one takes over from the other. I mean, those are fine points that I wouldn't want to speak to at this point. But in principle, I'm not against it.
Thank you.
Karen?
No, I'm not against it either. I live on Elm Street East, and I do see the people going through. I think safety is the most important thing. And we've all, if you remember, before the lights went in up there were several deaths up right on there. So I'm in favor of the cameras because I think it could do a lot of good.
Thank you. Terrence?
I got to say that I'm against them. I've heard stories, I've read stories, excuse me, about just they're prone to error. I don't want to see people getting ticketed unfairly. And I feel the police department does an excellent job as a standing. So I got to say that I am against those cameras from an outside contractor.
Thank you. Kevin?
I'm for the cameras if they're used for the right purpose. I don't believe putting them in just to catch speeders and ticket. I don't think that would be fair to everybody, because sometimes we all do make mistakes. We try to make that yellow light. I'm gonna make them. Oh, I didn't make it, but I still ran it. You know, there isn't anybody that's perfect out there. What they're used for, I come from a correctional background where cameras are everywhere. They're good at times to protect you, but they're also bad at times too when you don't do the right thing. I think the way they're managed would be the top priority to figure out what they're going to be used for. If it's used for the public safety, if there is an accident at an intersection, police department can zoom right in. They can pretty much call the ambulance and say, hey, it's a 2-3 car accident. It looks bad. They can accordingly accommodate the response to that. Thank you.
Mr. Dupont, quickly.
I've heard from everybody here that they want to bring in businesses, but I've heard everybody here say they think businesses should pay more taxes. How do you reconcile those two things?
It starts with Karen Roberts.
I don't think the businesses should pay more taxes. I think the tax rate should
I guess my
stay.
question really is, how do you, given the fact that if you think businesses should shoulder more of the burden than the residential taxpayers, how are you going to attract a business here without, while you're telling them at the same time, if I want you to come here, but I'm going to want you to pay more, whether it's in mitigation or taxes? How does that square from a business perspective of making Raynham attractive?
Well, I don't think the tax rate, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm in favor of the split tax. I think the businesses that are here are already established. I understand we want to attract more businesses, but if we have a good location on 44. It's a prime location. Businesses are attracted to that. That's why we have companies that are coming in, like the Walmarts and down the road in the industrial park and things like that. So I think it's a tough time right now, and I think that people starting a business are looking for a good town to put it in, knowing in the future when the economy turns around, they'll be in a good location and be doing a good business. But we can give incentives. I mean, I'm all for that, and I don't know enough to give you negotiations on it, but I think we could maybe learn that aspect of it, like negotiate with the businesses to keep them here, because eventually, if the businesses are here, it's going to attract more people to work here, and the Raynham's going to be a growing community, and it's going to be a win-win all around. More businesses, more money, regardless of if the tax rate stays the same or if it drops a little, but I don't see it dropping. I think we should keep the tax rate the same as it is, and the businesses will come.
Thank you. Terrence?
I really feel it's more about how many more people live in the town of Raynham. I mean, I know that we've grown exponentially to close to 13,000 people from only 8,000 not too many years ago. So I feel the more people that we have coming into our town, the more businesses are going to want to be in our town to serve our community. I had a very close friend once say that, we have a little bit of everything here in Raynham, and I couldn't agree with him more. And I feel that the more, I'll say it, the more young couples that move into our town, that set down their roots, just like I did when I began my teaching career. The more people who come in here and see everything that we have offered, the more open government we have that I promise as a selectman, I feel that will bring the businesses. So to answer your question, if I didn't get there, I don't feel the taxes should be going up on the 99% of the businesses in town. I really don't. I feel it's
one that we won't.
the more people we have coming into the town. That's what I really want. I'd be more advertising to the couples, the people who want to start a family, the people who want to move to an excellent community, the people who can take the train. And that's my response.
Very good. Kevin?
I'm not saying that the taxes are to go up for every business in town. I think when you're attracting a business from out of town, how do you tell them, hey, we want you here, but we want you to pay too? You can't sell it as, I want you to pay more taxes, because of course they're not going to come. You need to sell it as, we have services between police, fire, and EMS that we need to sustain. How, when you coming to town, are we going to be able to sustain our own homeowners in town, the residents, if they're always on calls on Route 44, on 138? Who's going to take care of the town in between? That's how we need to pitch it. So we're not pitching it to them that I want you to pay more. It's we need you to pay whatever you need to pay to offset. An example is we're talking about EMS on the other side of town. If that becomes a hectic side of town, yeah, it will need that. It will need EMS. It will need a fire station. So you're selling that. You're not selling, hey, we have a high tax rate for businesses. Come on in. You're selling, we have services that we can provide, but we need to make sure that we're providing it still for the residents of this town also.
Thank you. Dick?
Yeah, very simply, we can't have a double standard in taxes. We can't charge the guys coming in more than the guys or gals that are here. So we've got to find a consistent position here on taxes. And the simple answer, Jim, is this. This is clearly not a competitive place to be for attracting businesses and keeping the local businesses growing. I would not be in favor of a tax increase. I think the split that's there right now has been fine-tuned for the present situation, present economy. So I would leave it the way it is.
Very good. Final question of the evening, Mr. Palmer. You have the honors. And
how much time do we have here, John? Are you going to ask for a closing statement? Or?
Yes, they will get a closing statement.
Okay.
So if you'd like to waive your right, you could. But if you have a question in mind, you could.
I would like to waive my right and save that for a closing statement. Because
Very
I
good.
think that's important in debates and
Absolutely.
also forums.
Absolutely. So, as we discussed prior to the beginning of the forum, the order of the closing statements will be Karen Roberts, Kevin Marrera, Dick Chavo, and Terrence Smith. You'll have up to 2 minutes if you need it. Of course, you don't need to use all 2 minutes if you choose not to, but the time is yours if you need it. So, with that, Karen.
Thank you. In closing, I would just like to say, first off, I wanted to thank Don McKinnon for his years of service. I think he did a great job. And it's a tough job, and this job is going to be a 24/7 job. I'm like we've already talked about. I also would like to say that we've touched on a lot of issues regarding taxes, regarding water, sewer, everything across the board, and there's still many more issues that we need to discuss. But I think we're all in agreement that we all want the best for this town. This town represents, to me, more than just people and streets and things like that. I've lived here my whole life. Like I said, I brought my kids up here, and it's a wonderful place to live. It's a great community. The people here are fabulous. They pull together on every level. You can see that from the police, the fire, how great they are. I've used them in the past with my parents when they were elderly. I can't say enough good things about them, and I would just like to thank everybody and appreciate any vote that you could give me. Thank you.
Thank you. Terrence?
Thought I was last.
Oh, yeah, he probably is.
Oh, I'm going in, you're right, I'm going in the wrong order. Look at that. Kevin, my apologies.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to thank you for hosting us tonight,
committee.
along with your committee. I'd like to thank the panel and the townspeople that came out, and also my candidates. Without you guys, I wouldn't have anybody, to have a competition against. So, I just want to end off the night by saying, right after high school, I came to a crossroads in my life. I didn't know if I wanted to go to college or if I wanted to do something else. Well, I took the route of the military. 15 years later, I'm still in. Served my country. After coming home in 2000, I served my country. I served my state as a civil servant in the Department of Corrections, and now I want to serve the town of Raynham. If the townspeople will have me, I want to give it 110%. If when I go into something, I go all in, or I don't do it at all. And because I'm here, I'm showing my commitment that I'm all in. I want to make sure that our community is there for our future leaders, our children, but I also want to make sure that we're taking care of the issues that are right now, right here in front of our face. So we have a great panel here. I'm sorry. We have great people here. We all share about 85% of us share the same views, which is great. So the townspeople are going to get good quality people that share the same views. Now it's going to come to what the town people are looking for. What kind of character are they looking for? I feel like I bring a good character between my experience in the service. I've led troops in battle, and I feel that I can lead and assist in leading the town of Raynham to a future that I hope is more than what we have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Dick?
In some of the recent press articles, there have been comments to the effect that we needed to change the status quo, or that there was, quote, a disconnect between the residents and town hall. And I know there's always room for improvement, and I know there'll always be issues, but I think we should carefully build on the successes that we've made to date and preserve who and what we are as a community, a safe place, a friendly place, a place that's geographically very well located, a place that is going to be, I know, very attractive with the proper policies to new businesses. So I would say that I'm pretty happy with what we are, and I think we can build on that. I do want to say, when we recently went before the community with the town article for the debt exclusion for the sewer expansion, which is not a trivial amount of money to complete the sewer expansion into South Raynham, which of course is also known as Phase 6, and contracts 2, 3, and 4. And, at the time I thought, wow, this is a big hit, this debt exclusion. I know we'll be paying it down, but still, there's a lot of money involved here. At the same time, the people in South Raynham, they had been paying their share of the bonds, which is 75% of pay down on the bonds, the other 25% being betterment. They'd been paying it all these years while the other parts of town had received the sewer expansion. So this was a very big moment in this town for the residents to say, hey, are we going to stand up, and are we going to provide the money that's required to complete the expansion for those people who have been paying for this all these years? And I want to tell you that town meeting was fairly well packed, and there wasn't one dissenting vote that night. And I can't tell you how proud I am of this community for standing up and doing what I consider to be a moral imperative. I have one other thing to say, and that is that when I was considering this, running for this position, I asked a person in town government, how many hours a week I should plan on spending. And the answer kind of surprised me. The answer was as many hours as you want. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting answer. I want to say that as the only person I believe on this panel or this group that is retired, I have the time available to do this job the way it demands, to be responsive in a very timely way for the issues that come up. I want to say that my experience counts, and I hope that those listening consider that experience counts a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Terrence.
I'd just like to say thank you for moderating. Thank you, gentlemen from the Republican. And from my selectmen candidates as well, especially for your service. Thank you to the country. I appreciate it. And to all the residents from coming, thank you very much. I'm from a hardworking family. My parents are still both working. I've been an educator my entire life. And I'm sorry, I wanted to thank Mr. McKinnon. He was a champion of education. I really appreciate everything that he's done for his decades of service to the town. From a hardworking family, as somebody who gets up every single day, goes out there and has to make their money, just like most of us in the town, my experience has been in this town has been thoroughly positive. I'm proud of the youth center that we're going to be opening up. I'm proud of our police department, our fire department. I'm proud that Bridgewater Raynham has been, built a new school. There's so many things that I really enjoy about the town. And I am the person who said, there is a disconnect. And if people want to have more input, if you want to know what's happening, if you want to know how I voted and why, I feel that I am the precise candidate for you. I really feel that we can open this up, our government a little bit more, a lot more, and you hear from me what's happening here, how and why I voted, and what I intend to do on a weekly, monthly basis. And that's it. I really appreciate your vote, and I appreciate the time that I've had with everybody tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all here in the audience. Thank you at home watching. Reminder that, and I hope I get this right, I believe it's next Monday night at 7 p.m. here, same place. Pat Riley will be hosting a similar forum. I'd like to thank the Raynham channel for providing live coverage tonight and what I assume will be repeated coverage over the next couple of weeks. Thank the panelists from the Raynham Republican Town Committee, Chairman Nickerson, Mr. DuPont, Mr. Palmer, and most of all, I thank the candidates. And good luck, and I truly mean that. I think you all handled yourself very professionally tonight, and I know it's late, so why don't we just say good night and good luck.